synastry of JFK and Adolf Hitler. And if you're wondering what on earth, that's the caption. Well, the story goes like this. Apparently, JFK was fascinated with Adolf Hitler. So, as a good relationship astrologer, is a good idea for me to help JFK to find out, could there be something between the two? So right now we are having, well, it's no longer Jupiter day, that would be moon night and the Mars hour. And the moon is in Mars sign, and Mars is on the IC in Pisces, with Jupiter Uranus on the 22nd degree of Taurus, of course. Midheaven is ruled by Mercury, next to Lilith, and Mercury in Aries turned direct. So Mercury is direct. I cannot blame this episode on a Mercury retrograde. And the ascendant is ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarius. So now, without further ado, let's take a look at the synastry of Adolf Hitler and John F. Kennedy. So, immediately, if I look at harmonious aspects, I see that the chart, the moon for John F. Kennedy, is actually trining Mars and Venus of Adolf Hitler. And that would mean that he would find an emotional affinity with what he says and how he says it, okay? Or how he looks and how he acts. Because actually Venus Mars conjunction is basically acting your words, so it can be an attractive disposition for many. And trine is harmonious relationship. Okay, from the vantage point of Hitler, he would feel that he's been he would feel the rapport from the person that likes what he does and how he speaks and so on and so forth. Another harmonious aspect we should not neglect is these two have Uranus trine Uranus, which means that the way that they are rebelling in the world, or the way that they are being unconventional, is harmonious with one another. You can think about two rebels, which rebellion is complementary. You wouldn't expect, I would not expect this. I mean, today I'm smarter, I understand more about these things, because I'm more educated about kind of like the secret societies, the occult societies that run this show, and basically how things work there. So if you think about it as a role play, then the role of Hitler was complementary to the role of JFK. JFK could not say the lovely motto of, the best way to win a war is to avoid it, referring to the World War as well, on the brink of the nuclear crisis scenario, basically. And I think that's how is correct to say this today. And then we see the Uranus of Adolf Hitler, basically matching in or being trining Venus of JFK. This is the Gemini Venus for JFK. And they have Venus-Lilith synastry. So Adolf Hitler's Lilith is conjuncting JFK's Venus. Granted that Hitler would not sleep with the wife of JFK, because Venus is the wife, then that would be a very potent, yes, that Hitler has something in him that the JFK really likes. Okay, it's a Lilith. Let me just make sure. Where's that Lilith? Okay. I don't have anything in the middle decan of Gemini. Um, so if you have something in the middle decan of Gemini, you have a Lilith synastry with Adolf Hitler. It's probably not news to you, but that can give us a thing. um, let's see. Well, oh wow. Okay. So for as far as the nodal relationships is a very big deal. I did not know this. Oh my god. Um, oh fuck. Oh, holy fuck. Okay, so in terms of the north and the south node, this is astrology class for leaders. Rahu for Adolf Hitler conjunct Ketu for JFK, and of course, it is vice versa because they oppose each other, right? Rahu is opposing Ketu and so on. So north and south are in opposition relations. The nodal reversal relations is basically what you've been, I'm becoming. Okay, it's a very fated connection. Nodal relations in general, wherever the nodes of somebody meets another somebody, this is fatal. And I also want you to think about the rulers. Okay, so you want to think about the ruler of somebody's Rahu or Ketu meeting somebody's personal placement for ascendant, sun, or moon. It's going to be very intense. Or if you have the Rahu and another planet next to it, that other planet could be significant. So that other planet could be a person in your chart. Or the ruler of the ascendant of a person in your chart. These type of connections are fated. Nodes in particular are around eclipses. So you're going to meet this person and you're going to have changes to the relations with this person around eclipses in general. And here we are talking about actually the axis of the cardinal axis, and we recently had eclipses in Libra and in Aries. And that triggered also the Cancer and Capricorn axis. For those who have nodes there, or for those who have personal placements there. I talked about this. It was the eclipse of karmic relations. And look, I'm just looking at this as a joke, basically. But the joke got very real. These guys had tremendously deep, fated connection to one another. And it's very much the what I've been, you're becoming what you've been, I'm becoming. This is, in this situation, there is a great, it's both great familiarity and great curiosity. Okay, this is a very potent one, because if you've been what I am becoming, then you have familiarity with who I'm going to be, and vice versa. Okay, so it's kind of like I know the person that you are becoming, and then one can assist one to basically become that person. Very, very potent, incredibly powerful, and those are, as an astrologer of relationships, those are the type of relations that people, if they came to me, it would probably, and they would say, oh, I really like the this, the that, and so I would say, darling, I don't know what you are, but definitely you're meant to meet each other, and it's definitely a fated thing. It doesn't mean that you don't have choice in this fate, but we also need to understand the fate, what is playing along here, because each one of you is becoming the other. And this is a fated type of situation. And so this is very much like people who would or could feel they're like twin flames, had they both been kind of like, alive at the same time, because the karmic connection between them is just so huge. And you can think about, I don't know, JFK, the scenario where he's like playing the role. You think about this as movies running mostly, because what you have, the way that wealth is transplaced in the world, has nothing to do with the movies that we see. And it's unfortunately way too much to do with child torture and ritual abuse and sacrifice, and the world wars are like offerings. This is why they don't make a lot of sense. But in that scenario, you have kind of like an actor that plays the role of a leader, and that's JFK, at a situation with the Cuban Missile Crisis where he supposedly make decisions to avoid a world war. Okay, to not do what Hitler did. Okay, because he's becoming, at this juncture in time, the person who could, and it's in front of Russia. Okay, so this is one thing that is exceptionally, I did not expect to see this. But this also tells us that the entire generations that had Rahu and Ketu around, Cancer and Capricorn, first of all, they are activated right now, and they are in deep necessity needing to look at Adolf Hitler and see what hero do you want to become, how he died. Are you satisfied with this role? Would you, because right now you're heading in this direction, but much like JFK, it doesn't necessarily mean that that you're going to be Hitler. Okay, doesn't necessarily mean that this is what you're going to do, but you're definitely heading towards a fated situation where you're going to be him in some way. And this is largely, okay, if JFK avoided the war and got assassinated, then that was one decision. But he was definitely in the position of Adolf Hitler. Okay, so you're probably a generation that can understand this figure more, and that have kind of fated connection to the basically the chart of Adolf Hitler. Doesn't mean that you were Hitler, because that can make some people concerned. Hitler died in, was it 45? Yes, the end of the war, and many people were born later. So just yes. And some people are concerned, probably. Who was I? What was I? Seeing memories, seeing things, and maybe desiring to make a different decision. The way that we incarnate is very, there are many worldviews around this. And the questioning, okay, is this the fate? Is this like something that will wake humanity up? Or, okay, people looking at the incarnation of Ahriman or whatnot. So it's very likely that you find yourself in situations that are similar, that you will understand this person deeper than most. Yes, understand does not mean justify. Okay, for example, the JFK decision or turn was to avoid a world war by a certain communications line of communication with the Kremlin. Um, but hey, I did not. I was doing it as a joke. Like, hey, what a funny thing to do. It's not funny. I mean, yes, I did start as relationship astrologer, so I understand that those things. I was not expecting this. That's the beauty of it. Um, so JFK's Pluto is opposing Adolf Hitler's Jupiter and Moon. Not necessarily. Well, no, it's not when they are not alive. It's not necessarily active. The karmic node's definitely active. Okay, it's a karmic connection that you have with this figure, with this chart. The Pluto, it can be, but it can, because that would basically mean that, well, perhaps JFK was transformed by observing Hitler and observing, because it's lunar, and his beliefs. Okay, so many people, for example, right now, recently we had the AI, the English AI for Hitler's speeches, and everybody grew up to think that he was only talking about the Jews. Well, in fact, most of his discussions were about the working people and to make things better for Germany and for the German people. And he even said if the Jews want the country, they should be in their own country, but they put so many Jews and this affects our systems and so on and so forth. And so those were the speeches, okay? Definitely, and even when he addressed the Jews, he addressed this as they should have their own country, they should go to their own country, they should go away from here, because we cannot contain these many Jews in our country. And he addressed the fact that they don't work, although Jews were not allowed to work. So this is something that if you do watch Hitler's speeches, then a person can be completely transformed because it doesn't look like what you've been taught at school. In case you go up, to the school that may, and if you today there are schools where that's different. But you also understand how come even Jews voted for him. Okay, so I'm like, yeah, we want the country, we want some new place to go. They don't like us here, okay, then fine, but he's good for Germany, he's good for the economy, for the working people. Okay, but they couldn't work. It's a very weird thing, but Jews did vote for Hitler. So that means that JFK was very likely transformed by viewing, okay, Mooni's eyes, viewing the beliefs of, or the worldview of Adolf Hitler. It was transforming for him. It doesn't mean what type of transformation, but it can even go from viewing this person as a ruthless dictator to seeing what was presented to the people. So and another interesting thing, we have the Uranus of JFK sextiling the Mercury of Adolf Hitler, and again, very much in the spirit of JFK really liked. Okay, they both had they share the same ascendant, and they share the same ascendant. So JFK definitely liked the way Hitler was speaking. Many people liked the way Hitler was speaking. He was very passionate. He addressed the people. He was homeless. He was in battles. He was in jail. Okay, you could relate to the person from the commoner to the upper ranks. He could relate to all people. He was the people's person. Okay? You have to understand this because this is very relevant to our times where figures rise in such way and play such roles, and they carry the masses in quite a similar fashion, and it's very confusing. Because the scenarios, okay, Hitler was eventually sacrificed by the elites that picked him and trained him, and he killed himself, okay? So he would not live to see the New World Order, but he would be a sort of figure that plays a part in the bringing about of something new, which he thought and believed maybe that would be good, or it can also be he was trapped in the cult. We don't always have the stories. It can range anywhere from he was born into torture that would cremate his soul and bring it into fruition as a perpetrator, as many satanic ritual survivors or ritual abuse survivors, children survivors are, to whatever. I mean, we don't get the full story. We don't get the full story. Or it could have been that he was indeed recruited when he was homeless, when he was this, when he was that, and there was an interest in him to play this role, and hiring and educating and training him to play this role, and then expanding him just like expandable children, expandable people. Okay, and the people that go through these tortures, they see children die around them all the time. They participate. Okay, they basically, if my big insight about this is that the Holocausts are being practiced they're being practiced all the time, and then every once in a while you have a huge world war where everybody gets to see that. But this is happening all the time, and they're keeping to practice this all the time, and this is why you have this repeated cycles of such wars. So yes, so JFK was very passionate about the way Hitler was speaking. Ascendant. I think this is ascendant for. Wait. So the ascendant of Adolf Hitler is basically 26 Libra. It's basically very close to the ascendant of the State of Israel. It doesn't mean that Israel is Adolf Hitler. For those of you who absolutely do not know astrology, this is not how we do it. It's just a fascinating fact. And the ascendant for JFK is right on the Uranus of Adolf Hitler. So this create Uranian relationships. This create an unexpected sudden eurekas that would feel incredibly personal to JFK. It was like, okay, now I am Hitler in this situation. What do I do? Now I am Hitler. I am the revolution, the change that I am bringing the change that Hitler wanted to bring, but it didn't bring that. I'm bringing this change now, or it's just something. If you think about an order out of chaos, that can be taking place with this Uranus. Now I am the bringer of chaos or the bringer of order, but with JFK at midheaven conjuncting Saturn and engulfing Procyon, so he would bring the order out of the chaos that Hitler brought. Okay, to still the aftermath of the Second World War, and that was the role, that was the movie that played out there. The midheaven, yes. Let's see. Well, it's more difficult to see in this way. The midheaven for Adolf Hitler would be on the Neptune of JFK, and that would mean that JFK would meet the public persona of Adolf Hitler in a place that is full of ideation, devaluation, illusion, and disillusionment. So, it's actually a good part. You think about voting and voting patterns. If you could do a synastry of you and the leader you plan to vote for, you could see, like, am I seeing this leader correctly? And Neptune would give you clues where there is both a spiritual connection, but also chance for disillusionment. The sextile and the trine would give you more like a spiritual compatibility, whereas the conjunction or the square or the opposition would give you more kind of like the hard aspects. The conjunction is very much a longing that is represented here and can be met. The square and the oppositions are the tension points or the devaluation or the letdown, but Neptune always brings some hidden wealth that you don't even know where it's coming from, and it's just fated. Any more things that I can say? Well, they do have a Pluto-Sun conjunction with the Sun of JFK with the Pluto of Adolf Hitler. This is a very intense one because this is a very transformative one, and this is something that JFK would still feel when he would watch Hitler, when he would read Hitler. Okay. By the way, just a little bit of yes, disclosure sozusagen. I have my Rahu on 7 degrees Gemini, tropical Gemini, so that would be right on the sun of JFK. He came up in my life in certain transitions and in certain teachings, and I was not a conspiracy theorist kind of person. So I would not watch like the who killed JFK, who this, who that. I just understood when Rabin died, then was murdered. Then I was 12, so I just understood that for the Americans that lived at the time, which I would meet a person that lived at the time, not American, but that lived at the time of the murder of Kennedy, and he was, yes, I don't remember when Kennedy died. When was he assassinated? It was the same year, because that person would be 10 or something. Yeah, and so even in figures that I met, the JFK was very prominent. So I would definitely need to look deeper into JFK. Literally has a sun on my Rahu. So there's something I need to understand here. But that would also mean that the Pluto for Adolf Hitler, yes, would be 3 degrees away, 2 degrees, 3 degrees away, which means it transforms the way I'm approaching life at kind of like the second half of life, or where my soul is going. There is a huge role for this figure regarding that. Okay, and again, I was also not the type of person who looked at the World War or the Second World War, the Holocaust, kind of like, why did this happen? Why did this? I was like, people are fucked up. What can I say? People all over are fucked up. And then I would have like strong pull, even like to the level of I experienced the psychic attacks that were talking with me about the wars and so on and so forth, especially when I had met a person where we had a Pluto-Uranus square. Okay, I have it with the 63, 62, 64 generation. So I saw so many things about the war. It's like, what's going on? Why are we thinking about the war? It was so long ago. Why are we thinking? I was like, no, but Iran, but this, but that. And I was like, what is all this fear-mongering war with Iran and the central and the world will start in Israel? What are you talking about? I don't laugh so hard now. So these figurines played a part in my life, and they have, JFK and Hitler have Sun Pluto conjunction. It means that JFK would be his personality. And Sun is our personality. How we shine in the world is completely transformed by being exposed to Adolf Hitler, and he would karmically be exposed to Adolf Hitler. Okay? It's not that you're going to meet all the entire generation with these no's, but when you're talking about leaders and you're talking about public figures, then there's a reason. You see, around eclipses, you would meet those karmic relations. And you see, I'm talking about this in the shade of an eclipse and in the shade of a full moon that was triggering another eclipse on the fixed axis. So, yeah, that would mean deep transformation for JFK in this situation. But Adolf Hitler had Pluto-Neptune conjunction. And so the Sun for JFK would also be affected by the Neptune of Hitler. This means that extra Neptunian connections bring longings. In conjunction, it brings longings. Yes, illusions and so, but the illusion is the longing. Okay, you experience a certain type of elated experience, or even a deep grieving experience, and a mythical experience even, and there is an onset of desire for something. Okay, I mean desire not in the erotic necessarily, but desire for an experience, a certain experience in life that can be manifested. So if you think about the Pluto-Neptune conjunction that Hitler brings, Pluto is power and Neptune is mythical power, okay, which unfortunately Hitler carried. It could have confused him as well. This can also add an extra flavor to feeling powerless where you're actually powerful, and disempowered you're actually powerful, or omnipotent where you're actually not that powerful at all. And unfortunately for Adolf Hitler, he was recruited by the occultists, and he was not all that powerful. He was playing a certain role. His worldview was very much the prevalent worldview from his history teacher, who may or may not, if this story is true, played a part in his recruitment. And the worldview was a part of a legion of worldviews that were matched to this, and a legion of people that were matched to the type of actions that were based on this worldview. So all that next to the Sun of JFK, this would bring us a lot of ideation. A lot of ideation. If that is not enough, then this Pluto-Neptune sextiles the midheaven and Saturn of JFK, and this already means that JFK's life path and karma, Saturn, the accumulated action, would be completely transformed by this, but in a harmonious way. This one is easier a bit than the conjunction in terms of aspect, but it's still a very deep transformation that touches on the greatest fears and anxieties that JFK had. So that would mean, and also having, a sun in the ninth house, this exalted place, being an international leader. So the fears for the career is kind of like facing the fears head on, but in a more um, in a way that is more accessible. And so Pluto sextile Saturn, you are transformed. Your deepest anxieties are seen in a new light. What you're most afraid of, you're coming into contact with in a way that's more amiable than you believed. Neptune sextile Saturn is high spiritual compatibility. It is Saturn is also where we are affected by, let's say, our father or orthodoxy or, father figures, but kind of like the strict father figures. And Pluto gives us transformation regarding these things. And Neptune can bring a spiritual meaning of why is this happening to me? Why is this? Why this? Why that? And there is a spiritual acceptance of the road of karma with Neptune sextile Saturn. So, very, very powerful connection. That was very, very useful for JFK to look at Hitler, to look at him, to look at whether his speeches, his book, to actually read the texts, to be exposed to this, to not just ban this or make him shut up, but to look at this and to learn from this and to adopt what needs to be adopted and change what needs to be changed. In the way that he plays the role of a leader in the world. Ow. As for the hard aspects, so we have here, yes, the Mercury for Hitler would be squaring Saturn and Neptune of JFK. This means that listening, that either it would come at a later age, okay, that JFK would be exposed to Hitler at a later age, because Saturn brings delay, but also a difficulty to digest Hitler. Okay, difficulty to digest the personality of Hitler, difficulty to digest the speeches or what he saw. And Neptune is high on ideation and evaluation. It can be a person that he highly devaluated, and then he looks at him and he actually sees him talking, and it's like, oh, that that was not the the person that I thought. Or he could have idealized him at some point and then discover more information and then completely devalue, but go through these tensions of ideation or devaluation or surrender his own ability to see, because this is Sun, another luminary, the eyes to see Hitler. So that he had to surrender the ability to completely see the person. Okay, there's a certain fog that Neptune creates. It's like, hey, there's this presence in my energy. I cannot completely fathom what it wants or trust what it wants because I'm in a fog and I cannot completely see that person. So, alongside the big necessity of the encounter, yes, the encounter with the figure, not in the physical existence, of course, came big challenges to actually see who Hitler was. And this is, and this can happen, okay? Leaders are people, people are leaders. So you would have a synastry with the leader. You would have a synastry. You would say, okay, why am I drawn to this person? Or if you have aversion, why do I feel aversion to this person? Those things are good to look at. And also, if you see, I see the presence of Neptune here, it means that there is something about this person that perhaps I need to surrender the ability to see them, and just accept the experience, or focus on myself, or what am I absorbing from this experience, or why am I here? Because Neptune does create a certain fog. And just hold the fact and sometimes what you need from that is to know that you don't know, and hold in that space of uncertainty or fog or fogginess, that Neptune teaches us, right? That sometimes you go through a fog, and this is a part of the human experience. Um, so yes, we also see the Mercury and Mars and Jupiter for JFK are in conjunction relation to Mars and Venus. So this is a stellium, okay, 3 planets, that is conjoining both Mars and Venus of Adolf Hitler. That means intimate relation, okay, we have a lot of personal planets in intimate relation with 2 personal planets of Adolf Hitler. There is a surprising affinity of the way of conduct. So you think about Mars conjuncting Mars. These are 2 people that walk the same, not exactly the same, but they may walk the same. They may have approaches to life, strategy that is quite surprisingly similar. And you say, how come Hitler Hitler did something completely different than JFK? We don't know. First of all, there are many things that the United States did on a security level that we absolutely do not know. There's concentration camps for the homeless that's done now. Nobody's talking about this. And we absolutely don't know. Okay. And secondly, strategy is many things. And we're talking about here speech strategy, delivery, okay, because this is Mercury, Mars. So delivery strategies, way of managing the media strategies, okay, could you learn not only from Hitler, but also from Goebbels. And, technique is technique. I see today a lot of people have this. Everybody that wants to have a campaign suddenly has 0 following, unless they have like a pet profile or something, and only being followed. Okay, so it's like that is the technique. It works. You don't question that, and maybe you're even applied to that this is what you have to do and how you have to manage your media presence, because you hired a company, or because those who fund you are like, hey, Beyonce did that worked, let's do that, let's do Beyonce now. So somebody created a patent and now everybody's using that. And so that would be the kind of situation, okay, of media strategy. Or you could be watching Donald Trump and you don't at all agree with Donald Trump. But while we absolutely do not agree with Donald Trump, you might see the way he approaches the media and the genius about this, and you may apply it, but with your content. So that can be another form of where the strategies match, and the way JFK thinks works with the way Adolf Hitler spoke and acted. Okay, because Mars is action. That tells me that there are a lot of things that we don't know about what JFK did. Okay, we just don't know what type of action. Um, and a lot of things that just are not revealed to us. This actually changes the way I see JFK. And for Jupiter, that means that the worldview for JFK, or the sense of optimism, um, would meet action in an intimate way. Now, Mars and Jupiter are very weird because Jupiter is kind of like the temperature you need to grow a baby, and Mars is hot. Okay, so Mars can abort Jupiter, but the Mars is also action, and Jupiter is your philosophy. So acting on your worldview. Um, and then, you could have a worldview, and then it's remind me when I was a teenager. I was 12 years old. I came to my mom and said, wouldn't it be lovely if everybody just had, whatever they need, and I don't know, provide whatever they can. My mama said, looks at me very hard in the eye. She said, that's communism. I'm like, what is communism? Okay, so it could be a situation like that. Okay, you have a great idea, and I tell them, well, Hitler did that, and they're like, okay, what? How? How does that work? Um, and that can lead actually a juncture of dilemmas because it was Hitler. Okay, and or maybe not. Okay, we really don't know what goes on in these secrets. People are taught that not everybody can be free. Everything that Hitler was saying, basically, that's what they're taught. Um, so, yes, Hitler did that. It looks compatible, and that's what's up. For not being controversial enough. So let's give them a composite. Let's give them a good composite. In terms of I like to watch the phases of the moon. So for partner A, 20 April 1889, we had this waning moon. Okay, it's basically a decreasing moon. Scattering seeds, distribution, teach, sharing, and introspection, which of course he did more. And for JFK, change, action, seize the day, expression, growth. So this is a first Carter moon. This is a waxing moon. And this is beginning something. And so the phases of the moon are somewhat complementary in the sense that when you are a beginner, encountering people who are finishing up things is important. Okay, and that can very well adjust. If you can see the consequences of your actions clearer, because this is the person who implements what you just thought about, and that's how it turned out for him, especially when Hitler died. So what now? And okay, this could be bring in the scenario of the best way to win a world war is to avoid it altogether. But yes, he was assassinated maybe for that. That's the story that we're told. Yeah. And also the eighth house Taurus, both of them. This is an eighth house relationship. Eighth house relationship, especially with Venus, while there can be themes of betrayal and stuff like that, this is where somebody gets to see when you pick your nose. Okay? This is where you are exposed to each other's energies. The word energy is big on the eighth house because it's an astral encounter as much as it is a physical encounter. This is a person that brings, that can make you aware of the things that you've been swiping under the rug. And that can create growth and transformation for you when you actually address your traumas. But this is also, you can also receive a lot from this person, even energetically. You can just receive stuff from this person. This is the borrowing, it's the debt and borrowing. So in this case, you have to look what is coming up for JFK, because Hitler was dead by this time. He is receiving the strategy of Hitler and the mannerism of speech of Hitler. He could use it or not use it. Then communication in that sense, but it's more like the voice, the presence, the appearance, the looks, the actions, and even the sense of attractiveness or attraction. Because Mars Venus conjunction, what is attractive about Mars and Venus? Mars is action and Venus is expression. So Mars is action and Venus is values. Mars is action, Venus is appearance. So when those two conjunct, there is a great congruency. Okay, it's a person that does what they say they will do, which Hitler indeed did. Not to Stalin, but if you think about it in terms of like the Holocaust and the genocide and the we should get rid of, he was very intent on that. And yes, eighth house can also be a house of betrayal. I think it is because it is related. This is mine. This is evergreen teaching. Because it is so related with debt and ancestral lineage, and because the way finances run currently in the world is that the trust is based on betrayal. Okay, it's it's kind of like a big crime organization, and so this is why you have all these people. If you listen to Jaguar Wright, she describes it so well in the music industry. If you listen to Annika Lucas, who was trained to be his child spy, and she would address politicians. She was 10, and she would trained to see the part of them that was not loved, and immediately they would have this unexplainable rapport, and they were, of course, very likely trained to be vulnerable in this situation, in the sense that they are perpetrators, so they were trained to be perpetrators as well. And so were a lot of the satanic ritual abuse survivors and other type of abuse. So this is why the eighth house, the eighth house in essence brings what we swipe under the rug. If our entire lineage of economics worldwide is built on this eugenics and satanic ritual abuse and torture and rape of people, all these things, and trust that is based on betrayal, then we experience the eighth house as betrayal, but it's nothing that necessarily has to do with eighth house. It's just that the way our lineages meet, that these issues come up. There's a very intimate eighth house connections is very, very intimate. It's the person that's in your energy. Okay? Roll call for all the Libra placements out there. It's the person that's in your energy. And they see you in the places where you swipe under the rug. But the point of this connection is not to keep swiping it under the rug, but to tend to that and to be able to transform that. This is why you could be, if it's mutual, double whammy, you could be triggering each other a lot with this one, because they would step on your toes in the sense that, not literally, but they would bring in those issues that trigger something within you. But if it's a good, constructive connection, that they would also create a change and transformation there, where you actually tend to that. Okay? And so you want to see what are the issues that are coming up, because you will be tending to that. And if it's a double whammy, you both will be tending to that. This is what makes this connection, depending on what's in the lineage. Okay, but the issue of betrayal is addressing the fact that financially trust is reliant on betrayal. And so when we address that globally, then we can maybe even build a transformation of the experience of the eighth house for all of us, which is depth and so on and so forth. So that is very likely that the energy of Adolf Hitler was in the chart of JFK. And if Hitler was alive, it would be double whammy, it would be mutual, because they both have placements in that eighth house. This is that means that he could be with the energy. He could act as one with Hitler. He could the voice, the vocal training of Adolf Hitler, he could literally receive that in energy from a living person as well. Okay. And this is a gift. This is gift. So that is something to be considered, and those things happen between people. Yes, Adolf Hitler was also a person, JFK was also a person. Okay? And that's important to wrap our mind around. Now let's give it a composite. Because composite tells us about the blending of energies. And this, many astrologers would not look at composite for people who are not couples, like couples, because it's like, oh, their energies are not blending yet, bogus. Okay, those who are energy sensitive, these are called people who are energy sensitive. They were tortured, like whatnot, to go through being in these positions, and unfortunately, with that comes those experiences of what we call ESP. So they're very psychic, but also what you need to know is that you don't have to go through torture to develop ESP. Everybody is psychic. So this torture is unnecessary, and it's creating a lot of hardship and putting our leaders through a lot of hardship. Now, public figures, our musicians, our creative people, anybody that wants to be somebody, putting them through so much that every once in a while a big event like a war happens, and then many people feel these strains, and they say, oh, they don't care about us because they are living in their mansions, they are this, they are that, but they are living in life threats 24/7. Okay, I've recently gotten to look at certain chart of leaders, and sometimes you see, sometimes it's like it's in 1 week there would be 2 or 3 life threats coming from all kinds of like weird places. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Okay, so you're like, oh my god. And imagine that people in relationships, they tend to, their experiences tend to merge in a certain way that they begin to understand each other. Okay, so think leaders and people. People like, they need to understand us, they need to understand us. We don't even understand them, we don't even know distress, and unfortunately we are being put through experiences where distress is felt. And there are other things, there are other stresses that these people don't know or don't understand. Like, hey, you have freedom, you have this, you have that, you can go to any job you like, and so on and so forth. Why don't you have housing? Why don't you have work? Why don't you have this? And some of them can understand it, some of them cannot understand this. Yes, I remember during COVID we had in Israel, they said not to, what was it? Not to have, I think, air condition in buses, something of that sort. I don't remember why, something to do with COVID, so to kill the virus maybe. But there were not enough windows, the windows could not open, so the leaders did not know this. And people were enraged, and then they changed this, but they were not aware because they don't don't travel public transportation. So they didn't know that it's an issue, and people thought they have been cooked in the oven, like World War stuff. So and this can be an infiltration. Like one person does know this, and they want to bring this new world order. So it's like, yeah, let's give them the cooking in the oven experience. And some other leaders are like, they don't travel public transportation, so they don't know. And they're like, oh, it seems reasonable if it would kill the virus, and yes, and you can open for fresh air. That was one day. I don't know how come they were not assassinated that day. Talking about temperature. So back to the composite. And the composite, I'm looking at this moon. This moon that has square to Saturn, opposition to Mars, opposition to Mercury, but a trine to Jupiter. If I had to look at this chart just by the moon, and so this, I would say this is a chart of two people, and I wouldn't know who these people are, that they don't agree on anything. They don't agree on what is the bigger vision. They don't agree about how should we go about this. They don't manage to find a common language. But one thing for sure, when it comes to philosophy, they're not too much different. I don't know. Okay. So again, it can be this satirical moment, like me, 12 years old, coming to my mother and saying, "Oh, wouldn't it be lovely if everybody had whatever they needed?" And that, and my mom telling me, "Darling, this was the communists did that. That was not borne out. That was as horrible as Hitler." Okay, where it was practiced, and so it can be the kind of a situation. It's like the great idea is very good, but in action they don't agree with one another at all. It would give us a Pluto opposition Uranus. That is in a T-square with Jupiter, so Pluto-Jupiter square. As another T-square with a Saturn squaring Mercury and the Moon. Chiron and Mars. Chiron on the 18th degree and Mars conjunction. Yes, it's giving mass poisoning. It's giving what Bernard Ronald talked about. And in the 8th house, it's giving bad vibes. It's like, what's your strategy? I don't know what to do. Let's poison people. Yeah, I mean, it was done before. I mean, I guess that's the default. Let's poison people. So, yes, Chiron 18 degrees has to do with poisoning. It's a toxic degree in general. And it dots sextile Jupiter, so it's kind of like, I believe in toxins. I guess it's an important episode again. So, astrology for the new leaders. Don't believe in toxins. Yes. But then there is also the conjunction with the Sun here. So Sun, Chiron, Mars. Conjunction. It's a toxic relationship. It's giving toxic relationship. It's a toxic relationship. And Pluto is also on the 18th degree here. With the opposition to Uranus on the 21st degree of Sag. um, crisis when it comes to changing and transformation, but also science, cosmology. Think about Uranus, space. Um, you think about how the Cold War was kind of like, oh, let's send rockets to space, not one another. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Meanwhile, Mars. So, and look at the nodes, Rahu in Libra, Ketu in Aries. Ketu is right where Rahu is right now, 14 degrees Aries. So it's fated for me to talk about this as well right now, at the very least. This is also what the composite gives us. Yeah. But Jupiter does sextile Mars. Oh, yes, we said that. It's given Kennedy was more shady than we know. I'm not saying that I know everything, but I was not expecting this. There's just so much that we don't know about this entire political film industry. Is how I see it today. And with these toxic vibes. Oh my god. And with these toxic vibes. It was very fated, both of these people. One was poisoning himself and his dog and his spouse, and the other was assassinated. So Jupiter, Uranus on the 22nd degree. And I started with a lot of fortune on the 22nd. It was a very fated discussion. Venus on my Mercury, which was also Hitler's Mercury. Here, 1 degree away. So, and by the way, I have Mercury opposing Pluto. He was opposing Uranus by sign, so I am a bit more extreme. Fortunately, I'm not a Nazi. So, yes. And yes, Rahu is right where Ketu was for this composite. So it was fated for me to look at this, and it started as a joke. Uranus next to Rahu is a joke. Oh, that should be so funny to look at this. It's not. But it kind of is. And so, yes. Oh, the ascendant is on my midheaven with Sun. I'll just upload it.